The day of the broadcast arrived with clear skies over Geneva. Every screen on Earth showed the same image. The Valdrian Command Center where Vormath would announce humanity's successful integration into the Empire. Millions of humans watched because they had no choice. The Valdrians had made viewing mandatory. Inside the command center, Minji stood with other translators, her heart pounding. She knew Taiho and his team were somewhere in the building, using maintenance tunnels that Sora's intelligence had identified. The plan was simple and insane. They would use Jinho's shield disruptor to create a brief window, fight their way to the broadcast chamber and say something, anything, that would remind humans they weren't defeated. Minji didn't know if they would succeed. She didn't even know if the disruptor would work, but she was ready to play her part when the moment came. Vormath stood before the cameras, his three eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Behind him stood the Valdrian Council and several human collaborators, people who had genuinely accepted Valdrian rule and now helped convince others to do the same. People of Earth, Vormath began, today marks the completion of your integration. 6 months ago, you were a species in chaos, destroying yourselves through war and waste. Today, you are productive members of the Valdrian Empire. Your cities are organized. Your resources are managed efficiently. Your children are learning proper values. This is a moment of celebration. Somewhere deep in the building, Jinho activated his device. It looked like a mess of wires and salvaged components held together with improvised solder. By all rights, it shouldn't work. But Jinho had learned something during his month studying Valdrian technology. Advanced didn't mean invincible. It just meant more complicated, and complicated systems had more points of failure. The disruptor sent out a pulse of electromagnetic interference tuned to disrupt quantum entanglement. For exactly 4 seconds, every Valdrian shield in the building flickered and failed. 4 seconds was enough. Taiho and his team burst from a maintenance access tunnel directly into the command center. They had no functioning weapons, the Valdrians had seen to that months ago. But they had surprise speed and absolute determination. They pushed past shocked Valdrian guards who were still trying to understand why their shield generators had stopped working. Taiho was shot within seconds. A Valdrian weapon hit him in the shoulder and he went down hard, but his team kept moving. They had known the cost going in. 2 more fighters fell before they reached the broadcast chamber. Yuna appeared from another entrance using her liaison credentials to get past the first security checkpoint. She'd been waiting for the shield failure, and when it came, she acted without hesitation. She pulled a fire alarm, old human technology that the Valdrians had ignored because it seemed harmless. The noise created more confusion. Vormath's broadcast was interrupted by the chaos. Alarms blaring, humans running through hallways, guards shouting in multiple languages. The cameras kept rolling because the Valdrians wanted to show they had everything under control. They were about to demonstrate how they dealt with human resistance. Taiho, bleeding from his shoulder, was dragged into the broadcast chamber by Valdrian soldiers. His remaining team members were captured within minutes. They stood surrounded, outnumbered, clearly defeated. The whole world watched. Vormath looked at them with something like pity. This is the last gasp of human resistance. You see how pointless it is? They cannot even reach me before they are stopped. This is what remains of your so-called warrior spirit. The Valdrian guards pointed weapons at the captured humans. It should have been over. The Resistance's desperate plan had failed. But then Minji did something nobody expected. She stepped forward from her position with the translators, walking calmly toward Vormath. I have a question, she said in perfect Valdrian language. Vormath was surprised enough to hesitate. A human speaking his language fluently was unusual. You may ask. What? Minji said slowly, clearly, so every human and every Valdrian would hear. Did you have to overcome? The question hung in the air. Vormath's 3 eyes narrowed in confusion. Clarify your question. Your empire has shown us your achievements, Minji continued. Your technology, your conquered worlds, your perfect systems, but you've never told us what you overcame to achieve these things. What challenges did your species face? What nearly destroyed you? What did you have to survive? This is irrelevant, Vormath said, but Minji saw something in his posture. Uncertainty, maybe, or perhaps he had never been asked this question before. It's very relevant, Minji pressed. You judge us by your standards, but we don't know what those standards cost you. Every achievement has a price. What price did the Valdrians pay? From her position near the data terminals, Sora made her move. She had been working in Valdrian systems long enough to know how to access their historical databases. She pulled up information about Valdrian history and displayed it on the screens that were broadcasting around the world. The data showed what Minji had already guessed. The Valdrian homeworld was a paradise. Mild climate, abundant resources, no natural predators, no extinction events. The Valdrians had evolved in a Garden of Eden. They developed technology because they were curious, not because they needed it to survive. You've never faced a real threat, Yuna said, speaking up from where she stood with the captured fighters. Your species has never almost gone extinct. You've never had to choose between survival and morality. You've never had to sacrifice everything just to see another day. Kes, watching from his station, felt his world shift. He had spent weeks studying human history, and now it all clicked into place. Humans weren't defective. They were forged in circumstances the Valdrians had never experienced. Commander, Kes said, his voice quiet but clear in the chamber. I've been studying Earth's history. May I share something? Vormath looked at his young technician with surprise. Speak. Humans have survived 6 mass extinction events, Kes said, pulling up more data. Their planet has tried to kill them repeatedly. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plague. 99% of all species that ever lived on Earth are extinct. Humans survived because they're adaptable. Jinho, being held by guards but still conscious, added weakly. We're also stubborn. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. Not fast, not strong, but we never gave up. We would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. That's in our DNA. One of the Valdrian Council members reviewed the data with growing concern. Commander, our psychological protocols were designed for species with normal development patterns. Earth humans developed under extreme pressure. They're not responding to our methods because they're accustomed to much worse. Vormath wanted to dismiss this, but the data was undeniable. Human history was a story of barely surviving again and again, and somehow continuing anyway. The Valdrians had tried to break humans using techniques that worked on species from stable worlds. But humans came from a world that had been trying to kill them for 200,000 years. This changes nothing, Vormath said firmly. You still cannot defeat us. No, Minji agreed. Not today. Maybe not for years. But you've made a mistake, Commander. You've given us a challenge, and humans are very, very good at overcoming challenges. You wanted to conquer Earth? You've just given us a reason to become better conquerors than you. Taiho, blood soaking through his uniform, managed to stand. Guards moved to restrain him, but Vormath gestured for them to wait. The human could barely stand, clearly no threat. We've been fighting since before we could speak, Taiho said, his voice rough but steady. We've survived ice and fire and plague and war. We've climbed from caves to touch the moon. We've split the atom and mapped our own genes. And we did all of that while fighting each other. Imagine what we'll accomplish now that you've given us a common enemy. You're wounded, outnumbered, and defeated, Vormath pointed out. Today, Taiho agreed. But we heal. We learn, we adapt. That's what we do. It's all we've ever done. Minji stepped closer to the camera, knowing the whole world was watching. Human and Valdrian alike heard her next words. The sentence that would change everything. We've been fighting since before we could speak. And we'll be fighting long after you've forgotten what it means to struggle. You wanted to conquer Earth? You've just given us a reason to conquer the stars. The words rippled through human populations around the world. In work camps and hidden bunkers, in occupied cities and resistance cells, humans heard those words and felt something ignite inside them. Hope, maybe, or fury, or simple, stubborn determination. The Valdrians heard those words too. And for the first time, some of them felt something they had never felt before. Doubt. Not about their current superiority, that was obvious, but doubt about whether conquering humanity had been wise. Vormath looked at the humans before him. Wounded, captured, clearly defeated in this moment, but not broken. After 6 months of occupation, psychological conditioning, and constant reinforcement of Valdrian superiority, these humans still believed they could win. That belief, Vormath suddenly realized, might be more dangerous than any weapon. Take them away, he ordered. End the broadcast, but it was too late. The message had been sent, and messages once sent could never be taken back. The Valdrian Council held an emergency meeting 3 hours after the broadcast. Every member had reviewed the data, and none of them liked what they saw. The numbers told a story they had never encountered in 847 previous conquests. Human resistance has increased by 40% since the broadcast, a military officer reported. Production sabotage is up. Underground networks are more active. Our psychological models predicted total compliance by month 6. Instead, humans are more organized than when we arrived. They're learning, another council member added, pulling up reports from the work camps. Human scientists have reverse engineered our basic shield technology. They shouldn't be capable of this. Vormath studied the reports in silence. He had spent months trying to break human spirit, and he had failed. Worse, his attempts had created the opposite effect. The broadcast that was supposed to celebrate Earth's integration had become a rallying cry for resistance. How is this possible? He asked. Our methods have worked on every other species. A xenopsychologist stepped forward, a Valdrian scientist who specialized in studying conquered populations. Commander, I've been reviewing Earth data. I believe I understand the problem. Humans are what we would classify as an apex adversity species. Explain. Most intelligent species evolved in relatively stable environments. They developed technology to make comfortable lives more comfortable. Humans evolved in a hostile environment. They developed technology to survive. This creates a fundamental difference in psychology. The scientist displayed neural scans comparing human brains to other species. When most species face overwhelming pressure, their survival instinct tells them to submit. When humans face overwhelming pressure, their survival instinct tells them to fight. They fought each other constantly, Vormath pointed out. Their history is nothing but war. Exactly. 200,000 years of constant conflict made them excellent at war. Commander, we haven't been breaking them. We've been training them. The scientist pulled up more data. Every human who survived re-education learned to deceive us. Every human in the work camps learned to sabotage efficiently. Every human we thought we controlled became better at resistance. We've been teaching them how to fight us. The room fell silent. Vormath felt cold realization settling over him. The Valdrians had never faced a species like this because species like this didn't exist on paradise worlds. They existed on death worlds, planets that constantly tried to kill their inhabitants. Earth was a death world and humans were death world survivors. There's more, the scientist continued. We detected unusual energy signatures from Earth's moon. Our sensors show construction activity. Impossible, Vormath said. We disabled all their industrial capability. They rebuilt it, using our technology combined with their own methods. Commander, they're building something. The Council immediately sent a fleet to investigate. What they found shocked them. Hidden in a crater on the far side of the moon, humans had constructed a spacecraft. It wasn't large, barely big enough for a crew of 10. It was ugly with visible welds and mismatched components. By Valdrian standards, it looked like it was held together with hope and desperation. But it worked. The ship powered up when Valdrian sensors focused on it, and for a brief moment its engines burned with quantum flame. Humans had reverse-engineered Valdrian propulsion technology in less than 7 months. Then they had improved it, combining Valdrian efficiency with human improvisation to create something new. The ship wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even finished, but it was proof that humans could learn, adapt, and create. Given time, they would match Valdrian technology. Given more time, they might exceed it. Back at the command center, Kess accessed historical records that had never seemed important before. He found something the Council needed to see. The Valdrian Empire had existed for 12,000 years, but their technological advancement had been linear and slow. They made steady progress because they faced no pressure to innovate quickly. Humanity had gone from horse-drawn carts to spacecraft in less than 200 years. Their rate of innovation was exponential, driven by competition, war, and desperate need. If humans kept advancing at their current rate, with Valdrian technology as a starting point, they would match the Empire within decades, not centuries. Kess brought this data to Vormath. The commander studied it for a long time before speaking. What are you suggesting? That we made a mistake, Commander. We should have destroyed them or left them alone. Conquering them has created something we've never faced before. A species that knows our technology, understands our tactics, and has every reason to hate us. Vormath reviewed intelligence reports from the work camps. Jinho had taught hundreds of other scientists to understand Valdrian systems. Sora had mapped every Valdrian facility on Earth and shared that information through resistance networks. Tejo, despite his injury, was training thousands of fighters using guerrilla tactics specifically designed to counter Valdrian advantages. and Minji's words had spread like fire through the human population. "We'll be fighting long after you've forgotten what it means to struggle." It had become a motto, scrawled on walls, whispered in work camps, and repeated in underground meetings. "If we withdraw now, we show weakness," one council member argued. 847 species watch how we handle Earth. If we retreat, others might think they can resist. "If we stay, humans will eventually kill us," Kess said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The young technician had never spoken against the council before. "I've studied their history thoroughly. When humans face existential threats, they don't forgive. They avenge. If we try to exterminate them, survivors will hunt us across the galaxy. Their entire culture will become focused on destroying the Valdrian Empire." "That's speculation," another council member said. "Is it? Look at their myths. David and Goliath, Spartans at Thermopylae, the Alamo. Every human culture celebrates last stands against superior forces. They don't just accept being underdogs. They romanticize it. And Commander, they have 8 billion people on this planet. How many do you think would need to survive for them to rebuild? 1,000? 100? A dozen?" The council reviewed Earth's history of genocides. Humans had tried to exterminate each other repeatedly, and it never worked. Small populations always survived and rebuilt. Humans were good at surviving the impossible because they had been doing it for thousands of generations. Formath made his decision. He called a council vote, and after hours of debate, the decision was made. The Valdrian Empire would withdraw from Earth, but it couldn't look like defeat. They would present it as strategic repositioning. They would claim humans weren't worth the resources required to maintain occupation. The real reason, which only the council would know, was fear. Not fear of humanity's current capabilities, fear of what humanity would become if given time and motivation. The Valdrians had accidentally created the most dangerous enemy possible, a species that now understood advanced technology, knew how to organize resistance, and had an entire planet united by hatred of their conquerors. Before the withdrawal, Vormath demanded one final meeting with Minji. She was brought to the command center expecting execution or worse. Instead, she found the High Commander alone, studying Earth through a view screen. "You were right," he said without turning. "We've never been tested. My species evolved in paradise and spread to the stars because we could, not because we needed to. You evolved in hell and reached for the stars because it was that or die. Are you here to kill us now?" Minji asked. "No, we're leaving. The council has decided Earth is not worth the resources required for occupation." He finally turned to face her. "That's the official reason. The real reason is that you scared us. Not today, but what you'll become tomorrow. We've been studying your advancement rate. In 20 years, you'll match our technology. In 50, you'll exceed it. In 100 years, humans will be a galactic power and we'll be the ones trying to survive." Minji felt something like victory, though it was mixed with bitterness. "You destroyed our world, killed thousands, enslaved millions, and now you're just leaving? What would you have us do? Stay until you kill us all?" "We're not martyrs, Ambassador. We're conquerors who realized we picked the wrong target." Vormath pulled up an image of the crude ship humans had built on the moon. "This terrifies me more than any weapon. You built a spacecraft from stolen technology while living in work camps. Imagine what you'll build when you're free." He turned off the display. "I'm addressing Earth one final time. Then we withdraw. What you do after that is your choice. But hear this warning. The galaxy is not empty. There are species far more dangerous than us. Some will see your potential and want to nurture it. Others will see your danger and try to eliminate you. Choose your path carefully." 12 hours later, Vormath made his final broadcast to Earth. He stood in the same chamber where Minji had asked her question, and his words were measured. "The Valdrian Empire is withdrawing from Earth. We came to guide you toward civilization. We now see that you must find your own path. You are released from Valdrian authority. What you build from here is your responsibility." He paused, and for a moment his 3 eyes showed something that might have been respect or might have been regret. 3 days was not much time to prepare for the largest battle in human history. But the crew of the Indomitable worked without rest, repairing damage and loading fresh ammunition. Across human space, every available warship received orders to join the fleet at the Kepler sector border. Admiral Junho Kim arrived first with the Second Fleet. He was older than Minho, with gray hair and a face marked by decades of service. Once he had been Minho's teacher at the Naval Academy. Now he commanded 38 additional warships, bringing humanity's total force to 85 vessels. Not much of an army against 3,000, Junho said as he met Minho in the Indomitable's briefing room. It's what we have, Minho replied. He brought up a holographic display of the Kepler sector. The Velcarans will come through this jump point. They'll expect us to defend the colonies directly, which would split our forces. Instead, we meet them here at the border. 85 against 3,000, Junho repeated. 35 to 1 odds. I've fought in bad situations before, but this... He shook his head. The War Master brought 10 to 1 odds and lost half his fleet, Hana reminded him. The Velcarans don't know what they're facing. Thulax was arrogant and underestimated us, Junho said. But Empress Velcara is different. She's been watching. She'll adapt, he was right. Back on Velcara Prime, Empress Velcara studied reports of the battle at Axton Nebula. Unlike her High Arbiter, she was not dismissing human capabilities. She was analyzing them. Their armor absorbs energy weapons, she said to her advisors, and their kinetic weapons bypass traditional shields. These humans have found weaknesses in our standard tactics. The solution is simple, Empress, one advisor said. Overwhelm them with numbers. Even if their weapons are effective, they cannot fight 3,000 ships. Velcara nodded slowly. Perhaps. But I am also authorizing deployment of the Devastator. If the humans prove more troublesome than expected, we end this quickly. Her advisors looked shocked. The Devastator was the Empire's most powerful weapon, a battle station the size of a small moon. It had not been used in over a century. Is that necessary, Empress? One asked carefully. The humans have embarrassed the Empire, Velcara said coldly. They made War Master Thulax flee in shame. They must be crushed completely, so no other species gets ideas about challenging us. Make the preparations. Minho knew nothing about the Devastator, but he had his own secrets to deploy. In his quarters aboard the Indomitable, he met privately with Dr. Mirai An, who had arrived from Earth on a fast courier ship. Doctor, thank you for coming, Minho said. Mirai was young for someone in her position, but her eyes held absolute confidence in her work. Admiral, you're about to use my designs in the biggest battle humanity has ever fought. Of course I'm here. Tell me about the reactors, Minho said. Can they really handle 300% overload? For short periods, yes, Mirai confirmed. Our reactors are designed with redundant cooling systems and emergency venting. Most alien reactors run at 95% efficiency constantly. Ours normally run at 70%, which seems wasteful. But it means we have huge reserves to draw on when needed. And the consequences? Heat buildup. System stress. If you push too hard for too long, ships will start suffering cascading failures. But for a few hours? She smiled. Your ships will perform like nothing the galaxy has ever seen. The next morning, the Velcaran fleet arrived. 3,000 warships emerged from hyperspace in waves, filling the star system with their presence. They arranged themselves in a massive wall formation, stretching across thousands of kilometers. Minho stood on his bridge and watched them come. Around him, his crew was silent. Even knowing their ship's capabilities, the sight of such overwhelming force was sobering. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, the communications officer said. Empress Velcara's face appeared on screen. She was tall and elegant, with silver skin and eyes that seemed to see through everything. Admiral Kang, she said. Her voice was calm, almost friendly. I have studied your tactics. Very clever. Using kinetic weapons against energy-based defenses. I respect innovation. Thank you, Empress, Minho replied carefully. However, innovation means nothing against sufficient force, she continued. I am giving you one final opportunity. Surrender the Kepler sector. Accept limited status within the Council. In exchange, your species will not be destroyed today. We cannot accept those terms, Minho said. Velcara's expression did not change. I thought not. You have courage, Admiral. Unfortunately for you, that will not be enough. My fleet will now demonstrate what happens to those who challenge the Velcaran Empire. The transmission ended. Immediately, the Velcaran fleet began moving forward. But they moved carefully, not in a reckless charge. They maintained formation, covering each other's flanks. They had learned from Thulax's mistake. They're being smart, Hana observed. No easy targets. Then we make them split up, Minho said. All ships execute dispersal pattern Delta. Use the magnetic fields. The human fleet suddenly broke apart into 3 groups. One group, led by Minho, stayed at the center. The second group, under Admiral Junho, swung wide to the right. The third group, led by Captain Nari Bay of the Destroyer Reaper, went left and down. The Kepler border region was full of magnetic anomalies from nearby nebulae. The human ships used these fields to scatter enemy sensor locks, making precise targeting difficult. The Velkaran fleet had to split their attention between three separate threats. "First group is pursuing us," Nari reported over the fleet channel. Her voice was excited, almost eager. "They're sending about 800 ships. Lead them toward the asteroid field," Minho ordered. "Don't engage yet." Nari's destroyers raced through space, the Velkaran ships chasing behind them. When they reached a dense cluster of asteroids, Nari suddenly reversed course and opened fire. Her ships had prepared the battlefield earlier, planting missile pods among the rocks. The Velkarans flew straight into an ambush. Meanwhile, Junho's group engaged the main Velkaran force head-on. His ships formed a wedge and drove into the enemy formation like a spear. It was a bold, aggressive move that caught the Velkarans off guard. Junho's ships fired continuously, their railguns never stopping. When the enemy tried to surround them, Junho's fleet broke through the other side and circled back for another pass. At the center, Minho's group became an immovable anchor. His ships arranged themselves in a tight defensive cluster, creating overlapping fields of fire. Any Velkaran ship that got too close was torn apart by concentrated railgun fire. The enemy tried to flank, tried to overwhelm, but the human defense held firm. The battle raged for hours. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable than the larger Velkaran vessels. They struck and retreated, never staying in one place long enough to be pinned down. The Velkarans fought well, but their tactics were traditional, predictable. The humans were chaotic, creative, refusing to follow standard doctrine. "Casualties?" Minho asked during a brief lull. "We've lost 12 ships," Jiho reported grimly. "But enemy losses are over 800. They're starting to pull back their forward elements." "Don't let them regroup," Minho ordered. "All ships press the attack." But then something changed. A massive energy signature appeared on the edge of the system. Every human sensor screamed warnings. On the view screen, something huge was entering normal space. The Devastator emerged from hyperspace. It was enormous, larger than any ship the humans had ever seen. Its surface was covered in weapons, and at its center a huge cannon was slowly powering up. "What is that?" Hana breathed. Jiho's fingers flew over his console. "Sensors are having trouble analyzing it. It's generating more power than a small star. That central weapon, if it fires at this range, it could destroy our entire fleet." Minho felt ice in his stomach. They had been winning, but this changed everything. Captain Hyun Seo, commanding the stealth frigate Ghost, had been watching the battle from the shadows. His ship was designed to be invisible, using experimental stealth technology that even Minho barely understood. Now Hyun saw the Devastator and immediately understood what he had to do. "Take us in," he ordered his crew. "Into that thing's interior." "Captain, are you insane?" his first officer asked. "Probably," Hyun admitted. "But look at that structure. It's so big their internal sensors can't possibly cover every access point. We can slip inside before they notice." The Ghost moved silently through the chaos of battle, heading directly toward the Devastator. As Hyun predicted, the massive station sensors were focused outward, watching the larger battle. His tiny stealth ship slipped through a maintenance port undetected. On the Indomitable, Minho received a tight beam transmission from Hyun. "I'm inside their superweapon. Give me 20 minutes and I'll give you a weak point." Minho looked at the Devastator on his screen. Its main cannon was charging, building enough energy to vaporize his fleet. "All ships," he said quietly, "prepare for emergency reactor overload. We're going to need every bit of power we have." The fate of humanity now depended on a stealth frigate captain and his crew, somewhere inside an enemy battle station, racing against a countdown to annihilation. Captain Hyun Seo had never been inside an alien battle station before. The Ghost moved through vast corridors designed for beings much larger than humans. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on walls covered in alien writing. "We have 18 minutes before that cannon fires," Lieutenant Yunha Ko said from the navigation station. She was the youngest person on Hyun's crew, but her hands were steady as she guided the ship through the station's interior. Hyun studied the schematics his sensors were building. "Look for the power distribution network. A weapon that big needs massive energy feeds, if we can find where they converge." "Found it," Yunha said quickly. 3 levels down, central sector. It's like a power junction, feeding energy from the reactors to the main cannon. Get us there, Hyun ordered. Outside, the battle continued. Admiral Minho had ordered all ships to focus fire on one section of the Velkaran fleet, trying to break through their lines. If the Devastator fired, he wanted his ships scattered, not bunched together in an easy target. But they needed to stay close enough to execute his plan. On Earth, President Sujin Ryu watched the battle feed from her command center. Around her, military advisors and government officials stood in tense silence. The screens showed the desperate situation clearly. Humanity's fleet was outnumbered and now facing a superweapon that could end everything. Should we prepare evacuation protocols? One advisor asked quietly. No, Sujin said firmly. Admiral Kang has never let us down. He'll find a way. But that weapon. I know, Sujin interrupted. But I also know Minho. He doesn't give up. Neither do we. Aboard the Indomitable, Engineer Tae-Won-go was overseeing the reactor overload preparations. His hands moved across holographic controls, adjusting power flow and cooling systems. Around him, his engineering team worked frantically. How long can we maintain 300%? Minho asked over the intercom. 20 minutes, maybe 25, Tae-Won replied. After that, we start risking permanent damage. Some ships might lose reactor containment entirely. 20 minutes will have to be enough, Minho said. Inside the Devastator, Hyun's team had reached the power junction. It was a massive chamber filled with glowing conduits that pulsed with energy. The light was so bright it hurt to look at directly. These are the main feeds, Hyun said, examining the alien technology. If we plant charges here, here, and here, we can disrupt the power flow to the cannon. Captain, we don't have enough explosives to destroy this whole system, said his demolitions expert, Specialist Guman Park. We can damage it, maybe delay the firing, but not stop it completely. Hyun thought quickly. What if we don't need to destroy it? What if we just make it unstable? Guman looked at the power conduits again, understanding dawning on his face. If we overload the system instead of cutting it, the energy would feed back into the station's reactors. Creating an internal explosion, Hyun finished. Can you do it? It's insane, Guman said. But yes, I can do it. We'd need to get out fast, though. When this goes critical, the whole station becomes a bomb. How long do you need? Give me 10 minutes to place the charges properly. Hyun checked his chronometer. The cannon fires in 16 minutes. Get to work. While Guman and his team placed explosive charges throughout the power junction, Hyun sent a coded message to Minho. It contained coordinates and a simple instruction. When I give the signal, fire everything at this point on the station's hull. Minho received the message and shared it with his fleet commanders. Admiral Junho, Captain Nari, Captain Doyun, all of you. In 14 minutes, we execute a simultaneous strike on these coordinates. We're going to punch through that station's hull. Sir, even with all our ships firing together, I'm not sure we can penetrate armor that thick, Junho said doubtfully. We can if we overload our reactors first, Minho replied. Dr. On's modifications allow us to triple our power output temporarily. Every railgun, every missile, every weapon we have will be supercharged. We'll hit harder than they think is possible. And if it doesn't work? Nari asked. Then we die fighting, Minho said simply. But I'd rather try the impossible than surrender, wouldn't you? Across the fleet channel, every captain answered in agreement. The human crews began preparing for reactor overload. In every engine room on every ship, engineers worked to push their reactors beyond normal limits. It was dangerous. It was desperate. It was very human. Empress Velkara watched from her flagship as the Devastator's main cannon continued charging. The weapon glowed with barely contained energy, growing brighter with each passing second. Time to firing? She asked. 12 minutes, Empress, her weapons officer reported. And the human fleet? They're regrouping, forming a tight cluster. I don't understand their strategy. They're making themselves an easier target. Velkara frowned. The human admiral is not stupid. He proved that at Axton Nebula, whatever he's planning. She paused, then made a decision. All ships, pull back from the human formation. Give them space. Empress, Do it now, she ordered. I want our fleet at a safe distance from whatever they're attempting. Inside the Devastator, Guman finished placing the last charge. Done, he reported to Hyun. The system is rigged. When I activate these, the power feedback will cascade through the station's entire network. How long until it explodes? Hyun asked. Maybe 60 seconds after activation, maybe less. This alien technology is different from ours. I'm making educated guesses. Then we better be ready to run, Hyun said. He contacted his bridge crew. Yuna, plot the fastest course out of here. We need to be clear of this station in under a minute. Already done, Captain, she replied. I've been planning our escape route since we came in. Good. Everyone ready? Hyun looked at his small crew. They were scared but determined. We came here to save the fleet. Let's finish the job. 5 minutes until the Devastator fired its main weapon. Throughout the human fleet, reactor cores blazed with dangerous intensity. Ships glowed from the heat, their hulls radiating energy as power systems strained beyond their design limits. Minho stood on his bridge watching the chronometer count down. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. All ships report ready, Jiho announced. Reactors at 300%, weapons charged, we're as ready as we'll ever be. Hana stood beside Minho's chair. This is really insane, she said quietly. You know that, right? I know, Minho replied. But insane plans are hard to predict. We're betting everything that the Velkarans don't expect humans to be this crazy. They're about to learn, Hana said with a fierce smile. 2 minutes. Inside the Devastator, Hyun gave the order. Guman, activate the charges. Specialist Park pressed the trigger. Deep in the power junction, carefully placed explosives detonated, severing key control systems. The power conduits, no longer regulated, began to overload. Energy that was supposed to flow to the main cannon started cycling back into the station's core. Alarms blared throughout the Devastator. Velkaran engineers scrambled to understand what was happening, but it was too late. The feedback loop was growing, building, becoming unstoppable. Go, go, go! Hyun shouted. The Ghost's engines flared, to life, and the small stealth ship raced through the corridors heading for the exit they'd used to enter. 1 minute until the cannon fired, but the countdown was meaningless now. The Devastator's systems were going critical. Warning lights flashed red throughout the massive station. On her flagship, Empress Velkara watched in horror as her sensors detected the power fluctuations. What's happening? She demanded. The Devastator is experiencing catastrophic failure, her sensor officer reported, voice rising in panic. Internal explosions detected. Reactor containment is failing. Empress, we need to move away now. All ships, emergency retreat, Velkara ordered. The Ghost burst from the Devastator's hull, rocketing into open space. Behind it, the battle station began to come apart. Explosions rippled across its surface as internal systems overloaded. Now, Minho shouted. All ships, fire. 73. Human warships. Their reactors running at triple capacity unleashed everything they had at the coordinates Hyun had sent. Supercharged railgun slugs traveling near the speed of light. Missile swarms with enhanced warheads. Mass driver rounds that glowed white-hot. The combined firepower struck a weak point in the Devastator's hull that Hyun had identified. The armor breached, and inside, Guman's charges finally reached critical overload. The Devastator exploded. Not a small explosion, but a detonation that lit up the entire star system. The blast wave expanded outward like a miniature supernova, consuming everything nearby. 400 Velkaran ships that had been too close to the Devastator were caught in the explosion and simply ceased to exist. The shock wave damaged hundreds more, sending them tumbling out of control. The human fleet, having fired from a safe distance, rode out the shock wave with their bows pointed toward it, minimizing damage. When the light faded and sensors cleared, the battlefield had completely changed. The Velkaran fleet was in chaos. Their superweapon was gone. Nearly half their ships were destroyed or disabled, and the humans were still there, their guns still ready. Minho opened a channel to the Velkaran flagship. Empress Velkara, I believe we've demonstrated our capabilities. Shall we discuss terms? On her bridge, surrounded by alarms and damage reports, Velkara looked at the human admiral's face on her screen. The silence after the Devastator's explosion was profound. Across the battlefield, both human and Velkaran ships held their positions, weapons still charged but nobody firing. Everyone was processing what had just happened. Empress Velkara looked at the tactical display on her flagship's bridge. Her fleet was scattered, damaged, demoralized. The humans had destroyed her most powerful weapon and over half her forces. She could order her remaining ships to continue fighting, but she knew how it would end. These humans had proved themselves again and again. The terms, Minho repeated gently over the open channel. Empress, we don't want to destroy what's left of your fleet. We just want what's rightfully ours. Velkara took a long breath. What do you want, Admiral? First, recognize humanity's claim to the Kepler sector. Second, withdraw all Velkaran forces from the border regions. Third, advocate for Earth to receive full voting rights on the Galactic Council. Do this and we cease hostilities immediately. And if I refuse? Velkara asked, though her voice lacked conviction. Then we continue fighting, Minho said, and we both know how that ends. Your empire has already lost enough today. How many more ships, how many more lives are you willing to sacrifice for pride? On the Indomitable's bridge, Hana watched Minho negotiate. She had served under him for 5 years and still found new reasons to respect him. He had just won the most unlikely victory in human history, yet he was offering mercy instead of demanding surrender. Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Hyun, Jiho reported. Put him through, Minho said. Hyun's face appeared on a secondary screen. His uniform was singed and his face was covered in soot, but he was grinning. Mission accomplished, Admiral. The Ghost is damaged but spaceworthy. We're heading back to the fleet. Outstanding work, Captain, Minho said. You and your crew just saved humanity. I'm recommending every one of you for the Star of Valor. Just doing our job, sir, Hyun replied, though I admit it was more exciting than I expected. Minho smiled briefly, then returned his attention to Empress Velkara. The alien leader had been conferring quietly with her advisors. Now she looked directly at him. I accept your terms, she said finally. The Kepler sector is yours. We will withdraw our forces, and I will personally advocate for Earth's advancement in the Council. Thank you, Empress, Minho said. I believe this can be the beginning of better relations between our species. Velkara's expression was unreadable. You have taught the galaxy a lesson today, Admiral. Never underestimate humanity. I will not forget it. The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the crew erupted in cheers. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had won. But Minho raised his hand for silence. We've won the battle, but our work isn't finished. All ships begin recovery operations. We have damaged vessels that need assistance and crew members who need medical attention. Captain Nari, your destroyer group will escort the Velkaran fleet out of the sector. Make sure they leave peacefully. Yes, sir, Nari replied, her earlier excitement now tempered with professionalism. Admiral Junho, take your fleet and secure the Kepler colonies. Make sure our civilians know they're safe. Understood, Junyo said. And somebody find out where Captain Hyun is so we can bring his crew aboard for medical treatment and a proper debriefing, Minho added. As his bridge crew carried out orders, Minho sat down in his command chair for the first time in hours. He felt exhaustion wash over him. They had won, but at a cost. 12 ships lost. Hundreds of crew members dead. Every remaining ship damaged to some degree. The victory was real, but so was the price. Hana approached him. The fleet wants to know when we're going home, she said quietly. Soon, Minho replied. But first, we need to make sure this victory means something. 3 days later, the Galactic Council reconvened. This time, the atmosphere was very different. Delegates who had looked at humans with contempt now regarded them with wary respect. High Arbiter Velkan was notably absent, having been removed from his position by Empress Velkara for his role in starting the conflict. Ambassador Suman stood in the center of the chamber, no longer on the defensive. Beside her stood Admiral Minho, present as a military advisor. Around them, the council waited to hear what humanity would say. Members of the council, Suman began, her voice clear and strong. We came to the stars in peace. We followed your laws. We respected your traditions. But we also made it clear that we would defend ourselves and our rights. Today we stand before you not as supplicants but as equals. Empress Velkara spoke from her platform. The Velkaran Empire acknowledges that we underestimated humanity. We judged you by your small numbers and short history. We forgot that strength comes in many forms. On behalf of my empire, I formally recognize Earth's claim to the Kepler sector and support their petition for full council membership. One by one, other delegates added their support. The Thulian representative, whose empire had lost ships at Axton Nebula, spoke reluctantly but clearly. The Thulian Armada respects strength. Humanity has demonstrated strength. We support their membership. By the end of the session, the vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full council membership and 3 voting seats. It was a complete reversal of their situation just weeks earlier. After the session, Suman found Minho in one of the observation lounges, looking out at the stars. "We did it," she said, standing beside him. "You did it," Minho corrected. "You negotiated the final terms. You turned military victory into political success." "We all did it," Suman said. "The crews, the admirals, the engineers, everyone. This was humanity's victory, not just one person's." Minho nodded. "What happens now?" "Now we build on this," Suman said. "Several species have already requested trade negotiations. Others want to learn about our military technology. The galaxy is treating us differently now." "They fear us," Minho said quietly. "Perhaps," Suman admitted, "but also respect us. That's better than being dismissed." Back on Earth, President Su-Jin addressed the world. Cities erupted in celebration as she announced the victory. Humanity had gone to the stars as explorers. Now they were recognized as one of the galaxy's major powers. In the shipyards orbiting Earth and Mars, construction began on 200 new warships. Other species rushed to establish military alliances with humanity. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were proposed. The galaxy was adapting to a new reality. Aboard the Indomitable, now docked at a repair facility, Minho walked through the corridors one last time before taking leave. He stopped by engineering, where Taewon and his team were overseeing repairs. "How long until she's ready?" Minho asked. 3 months, Admiral," Taewon replied. "We're replacing the reactor cores completely. The overload worked, but it stressed the systems more than we hoped. She'll be better than new when we're done, though." Minho nodded and continued his walk. He visited the memorial wall, where the names of crew members killed in battle were engraved. He stood there for a long moment, reading each name. Captain Hana found him there. "They died protecting humanity," she said softly. "I know," Minho replied, "but I wish they could have seen what their sacrifice achieved." "They knew," Hana said. "They all knew. When we flew into that battle, everyone understood what was at stake." Minho turned to her. "The Council has offered me a position as Galactic Military Commander. They want a human to lead their combined defense forces. Are you going to take it?" Hana asked. "No," Minho said firmly. "I serve Earth first. Let them find someone else to command their fleets. We have our own to build." "Good," Hana said, "because I'm getting promoted to Admiral and I need someone to teach me how you think. Someone has to command the 3rd fleet they're building." Minho smiled. "You don't need me for that. You're already one of the best commanders in the fleet." "Maybe," Hana admitted, "but I'd still appreciate the help. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't retire. We're going to need you when the next challenge comes." "You think there will be another?" Minho asked. "Of course," Hana said. "We've proved we're strong. That invites both respect and jealousy. There will always be someone who wants to test us, who thinks they can succeed where the Velkarans failed." "Then let them come," Minho said. He looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. The galaxy has learned one truth now. They learned it the hard way, through fire and loss. "But they learned it. What truth is that?" Hana asked, though she thought she knew. Minho's expression was calm but certain. "You don't challenge humanity's fleet. We came from a small planet with no guidance, no ancient wisdom, no thousands of years of tradition. We built our ships from scratch, designed our tactics with fresh eyes. We made mistakes and learned from them. We faced impossible odds and found ways to win." He turned to face Hana directly. "The other species have had the galaxy for millennia. They became comfortable, predictable. They forgot that the most dangerous opponent is the one with nothing to lose and everything to prove. That's humanity. We're newcomers, but we're not weak. We're not easily intimidated, and we absolutely will not back down. So if they challenge us again," Hana prompted. "Then we remind them," Minho said simply. "We remind them that humanity's warships aren't just unstoppable because of technology or tactics. We're unstoppable because we refuse to accept defeat."